Hey, welcome back to Aphrodite Energy. Today we're going to look at what Aphrodite wants you to know about stepping into your goddess era. I really like this reading because these cards feel like they're describing a transition that's already happening within you. There's an old version of you that you're moving away from, and you're beginning to understand what it actually means to take your power back and live from a much stronger sense of self. So take a moment, get comfortable, and just see what resonates with you as we go through the cards. The first card we have is the Red Anemone, with rebirth, end of a cycle, and reflection. I think this is a really beautiful card to receive at the beginning of this oracle reading because it suggests that you're coming to the end of something that has shaped you for quite a while. You may have been reflecting on certain experiences recently and seeing them differently than you did before. Things that once felt incredibly personal may not have the same hold over you anymore. Perhaps there was a relationship, a period of your life, or even a particular version of yourself that you spent a long time trying to understand. And now you're reaching the point where you can look back without wanting to go back. That's a very different place to be. There's a sense here of realizing that some of the things you went through taught you far more about yourself than you understood at the time. You learned what happens when you give too much of yourself away, when you ignore your instincts, when you stay somewhere longer than you should, or when you keep trying to prove your worth to people who aren't in a position to recognize it. I feel like Aphrodite is saying that chapter has done what it needed to do. You don't have to keep carrying it into the next one. And when I look at this card, I keep coming back to that word rebirth. There's something about you that's beginning again. But this time you're bringing the wisdom with you. You're becoming much more conscious of who you are and what you want, and that changes the way you approach everything. Now we have bountiful boundaries, and this feels like a very important part of stepping into your goddess era. There's a point where you begin to realize that protecting your energy isn't something you need to apologize for. You become much more comfortable deciding what you will participate in and what you won't, and you don't feel quite so compelled to explain every decision you make. For some of you, this may already be happening. You might be noticing that you're less interested in arguing your point or convincing somebody to understand you. If something doesn't feel right, you're more willing to trust that feeling instead of talking yourself out of it. And I think that is a huge shift because your boundaries become much stronger when they're coming from self-trust rather than anger. You don't need to be aggressive about them. You don't need to make a big announcement. You simply know where you stand. There could also be people around you who are noticing that you're different. Perhaps you're not as available as you once were, or you're becoming more selective about who you give your time and attention to. Some people will respect that immediately, and others may test it because they're accustomed to having more access to you. Let them. This card is asking you to stand your ground and allow your actions to speak for you. And I think that's a big part of the goddess energy coming through this reading. Knowing that your presence has value and treating it accordingly. Now, let's look at Aphrodite activation. This is such a gorgeous card to have in this particular reading because it feels like the point where you're reconnecting with something inside yourself that may have been quiet for a while. There could be a part of you that's beginning to feel more alive again. Maybe you're becoming more interested in beauty and pleasure, or you're allowing yourself to be more expressive and sensual. Maybe you're feeling more confident about what you want and less embarrassed about wanting it. And I think Aphrodite is reminding you that you are allowed to enjoy yourself. You don't have to wait for some future version of your life before you allow yourself to experience pleasure, beauty, romance, creativity, or whatever makes you feel connected to yourself. This card has a very strong feeling of coming home to yourself. You may find yourself wanting to change things around you because your environment no longer reflects how you're beginning to feel inside. You may want to dress differently, wear things that make you feel beautiful, spend more time alone, explore something creative, or simply make more room for the things that make life feel enjoyable again. Follow that. There's a reason you're feeling drawn towards it. And I think the more you allow yourself to experience that side of you, the more natural your confidence becomes. You're not trying to perform some idea of femininity. You're discovering what femininity actually means to you. That's very different. And then we have our final card, the Sacred Bloom, with It's Happening, a new you and patience. This feels like Aphrodite saying, give yourself time. You are already changing. You may be able to feel it before you can really explain it. Something about the way you think, the way you respond to people, the things you're attracted to, the things you're no longer interested in. It's all beginning to shift. And sometimes when you're in the middle of a transformation, you don't recognize it because you're looking for some dramatic moment where everything suddenly feels different. It doesn't usually happen that way. You make one decision differently, you respond to something differently, you stop going back to something you know isn't good for you. You start listening to yourself a little more. And then, eventually, you look back and realize you've become somebody you wouldn't have recognized a year ago. That's what I feel with this card. Your goddess era is something you're growing into. And I think the patience here is really important because you don't need to force yourself into an identity. You don't have to wake up tomorrow and suddenly feel completely confident and transformed. Let yourself become her naturally. The woman you're becoming already knows more than the woman you were before. She's learned from what she's experienced, she's much more aware of what feels right for her, and she's beginning to trust herself. So when I put all 4 cards together, I think Aphrodite's message is really about reclaiming yourself. You're closing a chapter that taught you some difficult lessons. You're becoming more protective of what you allow into your life. And you're reconnecting with the part of yourself that wants to experience beauty, pleasure, and life on your own terms. And then comes the Sacred Bloom. You allow all of that to develop. You don't have to chase your goddess era because you're already stepping into it every time you choose yourself. Every time you trust your instincts, every time you stop accepting something that doesn't feel right, and every time you allow yourself to want more from your life. So perhaps take a moment after this reading and ask yourself, who am I becoming now? And more importantly, what would she no longer tolerate? And what would she finally allow herself to experience? Because I think that's where your next chapter really begins. Your goddess era isn't something somebody else gives you permission to enter. You decide that you're ready, and then you start living accordingly. If this reading resonated with you, write "My power is absolute" in the comments and claim the energy of this new chapter for yourself. And I'll see you in the next reading.